There's a lot of controversy about the techniques in kata and what they're for. In particular, uke-waza get a lot of attention in some heated discussions about it. Uke-waza being receiving techniques, although they're more commonly translated as blocking techniques. In this video, I wanted to address one technique in particular and one application in particular, that being Chudan-Uke, your middle receiver, middle block, being used as a strike. This technique most often seems to come up in these conversations as evidence that uke-waza can't be used as strikes or shouldn't be used as strikes. The reason that's usually given is that the motion of a Chudan-Uke uses very small, weak muscles in the shoulder compared to some of the other strikes that we have, and therefore it's not an effective strike just because it can't hit hard enough. This would be true if we only used our arm to generate the motion. If I try to hit something with just my arm with this technique, it's very weak. Even if I'm using my thumb knuckle, for example, to concentrate all the force onto a small area, it's still not very effective. But the same thing is true of any other strike that you have. If you're punching, if you're using sword hand, if you're using palm strikes, elbows, any of those techniques, if you're using just your arm to generate the motion, you have a weak strike. We know from all those techniques that you have to use the rest of your body, your legs and your core, to drive body weight into the strike and generate power without so much reliance on the arms. So the same thing is true of using your Chudan-Uke as a strike. You don't want to use just your arm. You want to use your whole body. When you do that, it becomes much more powerful. It's still not the strongest strike in the karate arsenal, that's true. But when you're using your body instead of your arm, it's no longer useless as a strike. And if you place it into a target-rich environment, say the neck, where you have a lot of sensitive targets to hit, it becomes a much more reasonable thing to use. In addition, this motion works very well on the way to other things. So yes, this may not be the most powerful strike that you have, but from here, especially if this is on the neck, you now have contact with your opponent, you know where they are, and you can strike to the head, you can strike to the body, you can go into locking techniques. If you miss or go through the target to the other side, that's not a big problem. You can come back, of course. You have another arm on the other side of their body that you may have to deal with. So really, this puts you in a good position to follow up. So if you're using it as a strike to disrupt or distract your opponent, it's a good option there as well. So these are just some things to think about when you're talking about using a technique that is conventionally used one way, using it another way. It probably can still work, but you may have to look at it a little bit differently. So if you're expecting this to work with just your arm for some reason, you're going to be disappointed. But if you apply the same concepts you would for any other strike, you may have a lot more luck with your training it. So these are just some things that I wanted to bring up. I kind of rambled a little bit in the video. I do that a lot, so hopefully I didn't lose too many people there. But just something I wanted to share.